Well, as the world marks International Workers' Day, concerns are being raised that over 70% of workers in South Africa do not belong to any trade union. However, some labour experts have blamed unions for not being more active in recruiting new members in the industries that they're organised in. Unions also say that some employers are reluctant to let employees join unions. Unions have cited many reasons for workers not belonging to unions. And to help us unpack some of these issues, we're now joined via Zoom by labour analyst Terry Bell. Terry, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Embarrassing scenes that we saw at the COSATU May Day rally today. And I spoke to a senior political reporter, and he says that the Tripartite Alliance was surprised by what happened today. Your take?
Good evening, Peter. Well, I don't know why they would have been surprised. I mean, I don't know who on earth advised Cyril Ramaphosa to go to Rustenburg at this particular time to be the main speaker to May Day rally. This is where this is Rustenburg, this is the Platinum Belt, this is where you actually have a major strike underway at the moment. And Cyril Ramaphosa is still remembered from 10 years ago, from August 16, 2012, for his involvement in Marikana, which is still remembered. Now, these are mine workers who are on strike, together, NUM and UMCU together. At the same time, you also have a lot of public sector workers in that area who are very angry about the fact that they lost out on an agreed 3-year deal by the government through a legal technicality, which, I mean, is still, I think, well, in many ways quite appalling from my personal point of view, and I think for many other Labour people as well. So the point is, for Cyril Ramaphosa to have gone there at this time was, I think, either, well, foolhardy certainly, insensitive definitely, possibly even arrogant. And that's a problem. No wonder there was booing, etc. I'm not surprised at all. I'm really surprised that anyone had been surprised about it.
All right, let's say somebody else went instead of President Ramaphosa. We take out the personality. The issue is still actually mainly with government, isn't it?
With government, yes, but he tends to epitomise, because particularly the involvement in Marikana, and also because he is seen as being part of the mining establishment. Gwedi Mantashe, for example, who's another General Secretary of the National Union of Mine Workers, could possibly have got away with it a bit better, I'm sure. But why send someone like that to that area at that particular time? The mind boggles, quite honestly. I cannot understand why on earth they did that.
So we have calls, and this is something I asked a few years ago, actually, whether a tripartite alliance actually still has legs, because the political orientation seems to be so diverse now that it can't possibly lie in the same bed.
I've never thought it had legs. I mean, you can go back to my writing from way back. 1996, the combined trade union movement, that was COSATU, FEDUSA and NACTU, the three federations that existed at the time, came up with actually a fairly good basic social democratic macroeconomic policy, which put redistribution before growth. It was actually based almost entirely on the ANC's own macroeconomic policies that have been devised before they came into power by their own macroeconomic group, which they tended to ignore. And the trade unions put this forward. I think it's a very sensible document. The business community put forward at the same time a thing called Growth for All, which was just a straight, let's privatize everything and let's have competition, etc. And then government came with a very skimpy document, which, well, I remember one, and he was a straight down the line, middle of the road economist who called it a cascade of improbabilities, the growth, employment and redistribution policy of the ANC government. And we followed it ever since, and it's been a total disaster. So the point is that unions then, however, the major union federation got into bed solidly with the government. And I think that's the last thing any union should ever do. Unions are the defensive mechanism within the working class, people who sell their labor in order to survive. And the point is government, in fact, in this country certainly, but mostly around the world, are amongst the major employers. In this country, they are the major employer of labor. So therefore, you do not, quite honestly, get into bed with your boss. It just doesn't work. And what happens is either the employer then subsumes the labor, and we've seen this happen. I mean, look at the point is you can have everything from from the General Secretary of the Teachers Union, who's now the Minister of Labor. You had Zokwana, who moved seamlessly from presidency of the National Union of Mine Workers into being Minister of Agriculture. It happens all the time. It's a terrible thing. It is actually a corruption of the situation, even within the system, which in itself has its problems.
There are calls for the depoliticization of the labor unions, and I'm reminded of Frederick Chiluba in Zambia, labor union leader, became political, went and became president. Then you have Morgan Tsvangirai in Zimbabwe, labor union leader, and some would say he won many elections in Zimbabwe after politicizing the labor movement. So where are we in South Africa? Will we see labor saying that the ANC, SACP perhaps, are not serving us and we need to form our own political movement to deal with labor issues?
Well, we've had Julius Malema today saying that they're going to form their own EFF one. I think the very last thing we need, quite honestly, is yet another labor union or federation affiliated to a political party. No, I see labor as the organization, and I think this has always been the case. Labor is a reaction to the capitalist system, where employers will have to try and get the cheapest possible work they can out of workers. Therefore, workers have to organize because they, in order to protect themselves, try to protect their wages and their living conditions. They are the sort of great reserve army of workers, of people who sell their labor against people who employ labor. And the point is that that's where they should remain. However, you should have beyond that these workers saying, we will support whichever political organization or party that emerges that supports what suits us as workers, and that makes no difference what your religion is, your political orientation, or whatever. So in this country, we actually have, fortunately, at a very base level, a very good system of the Bill of Rights, which gives us I think, a fantastic groundwork. We say, right, this is what we support, and this is what we will have. Now, if you as a political party are prepared to support this, this, and this, we as a union or a union federation or a union grouping will support you. That's what we need. Then in addition to that, what we also need is to say that if you go to Parliament or provincial whatever, we have the right to recall you if you do not adhere to the principles we elected you for. That's what we need. That's what we need to actually look at. We actually require a real revision, a real look at what the ILO, the International Labour Organization, has called about the revitalization of the trade union movement. I think it's more than that. We need a revitalization of the trade union movement in its relationship to the political movement and a revitalization of the political movement.
Does this partly explain why unions have been struggling to get new members and to build up its numbers to its once glorious past?
Well, the point is, I think unions are stuck still in the 20th century when we're already very much in the 21st century. Work has changed, and it's changing very, very rapidly because of the nature of technological development. We now have a situation where we have machine learning, we have automation, all being driven by artificial intelligence, which means that many of the jobs that could have been done by workers in the past can be done by machines more effectively, more efficiently, etc. Therefore, we look at a position in the future where much, if you look at the way we organize now, most of the working class, and that is most of humanity, becomes redundant. So what we need to do is look toward that future and say, how do we organize? Do we now need to change that system? Do we need to perhaps have, if we want to keep the same sort of system, 2 days work? That's all you need to do every week. The rest of the time you're free to pursue whatever wish you play, make music, paint pictures or whatever. 2 days a week, but you have a decent wage and decent conditions. We have to look at that. We have to look at what is coming in the future at the same time as looking at the destructions going on in the planet in terms of the oceans being depopulated of fish. We have to look at the destruction of the environment. We have to look at all of that. And unions, which are still remain the core of organized labor, need to get together and say, right, either we're going to just collapse into nothingness or gradually fade away, or else we have to now begin to adapt to the new century and to the new reality.
Terry Bell, always great talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you, Peter.